This is Milton Ford, scene of the battle on day one. Behind me is the Bannockburn. Behind the Bannockburn there, with that winding path that just comes down this way, is the main road of 1314. This is where Gloucester's division, or part of his division, approached to get over the ford here. This was the only crossing point for about a mile, because the banks in the Bannockburn here, the embankments are so high, they're so steep that they're really unsuitable for heavy cavalry. Now, going on from here, it's the main road to St Ninians. It was the main road to St Ninians in 1242. But on day one of the battle, the knights came down here. This is a bottleneck. It's very similar to Thermopylae. It's Scotland's Thermopylae. Bruce's schiltrams were lined right up there on that high ground behind me, and they were waiting on the English advance. Now, they'd been coming from Falkirk. Their objective at that point was to engage the Scots, but also to relieve Stirling Castle. And this area here, this bit of the Bannockburn behind me, was the only way across. If you travel for a mile in either direction here, it's very, very difficult to cross. The bankings are so high, they're treacherous actually. Now, there's been some heavy rain last night and this morning, so the Bannockburn is a little bit high. It's very dodgy underfoot. There's smooth stones. It is not easy to cross. One particular knight who arrived here early, Sir Henry de Bohun, he saw Bruce up in the high ground up there, and he raced across this ford and up onto the high ground. What he realised when he got there was that there were so many pikemen there waiting. It's said that the English were met roughly by the Scots. But he saw Bruce. He saw a chance of glory. Bruce was on his horse. De Bohun came over this burn behind me here, raced up there afterwards, and then found himself among all these Scots pikemen. So what did he do? He pulled up his horse, he reined it up, he turned around, and he went back the way to cross this burn and alert the rest of the contingent that was coming. Bruce saw this. Bruce raced after him on his horse, and right where I'm standing now, Bruce got up behind him, brought up his battle axe and brought it down on his helmet, cleaving his head in two. This is where Henry de Bohun met his end. This was the first bloody nose for the Scots army that day. Because the knights could only cross a maximum of 4, probably 2 to 3 at a time, it was really congested. Gloucester himself had crossed here and was unhorsed. It wasn't a good time for the English people. They came up here, the English soldiers, to get some sport. They didn't think that they would be met as roughly as this. The Bannockburn, which goes this way, some of the young, impatient, impetuous knights went in that direction, and they went as far for a good mile, where they came up between Milton Bog and Halbert's Bog. There they were met by Edward Bruce's division, and he repelled them there also. But this is where the fighting took place on day one. This is where it all happened. This is not the Roman road, as many people believe. The Roman road was slightly over there to my left. This was the main road of 1314. And it's such a, from a heritage point of view, it's such an important piece of ground to preserve. Bruce's soldiers on the high ground up there behind me. The number of pikes in Bruce's division at this point would have been hefty. There would have been a large massed number of pikes. There's no record of Scots being killed at this point, But a few of the English knights were killed and they retreated. They could not get access to the Dryfield from here. The English did not get access to the Dryfield at all on day one. Hence why the battle was never fought on day 1 or 2 in the Dryfield. The English eventually retreated to the Carse area, which was their chosen camp. But we're here at Milton Ford. This is the opening of the battle on day 1. It's such a significant and poignant place. It's such an important place. This was an early morale booster for the Scots to repel the English here. Such a great accomplishment. They'd known the English were coming, they were waiting on them coming, they were ready for their advance. But Bruce, the genius that he was, used this ground well. He used this ground in such a phenomenal way that he could effectively immobilize or drastically reduce the movement of the English knights. There would be no charge here. There would be a half-hearted charge right into the formation of pikes, which would be right behind me here and up on this hill where these houses were. This big house behind me here was built in 2010, I think. But it's such a sacred place. It's such a sacred piece of ground that it really does have to be preserved. The English, once they had failed here, once their sport didn't turn out the way they thought it would have been, would have gone back up this road behind me towards Catcraig and over where Brucefield's golf course now stands. There's planned to be building on that, but that's the way they would have retreated and headed back down towards the Carse of Balquidrock, which was their chosen camp for the night.